Welcome to the 98 Central podcast, where we talk about growing a business, working in media, and building a team that we love. I'm social strategist Kyle Jewell, and I'm joined today by our COO, brand director, team leader in general, Jen Blair. How's it going, Jen?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing well, thanks.
Yeah.
So today we were talking about something that we have talked about in internal meetings for the last
Forever.
5 or 6 years.
Again, great podcast everyone has already missed.
And that is social media followers. And today I just want to answer the question, do social media followers, do they matter to brands?
Yeah.
Let's just jump right into it.
Yeah.
On 3, okay, let's answer the
Okay.
question, do social media followers matter?
Okay.
Ready? 1, 2, 3.
No.
Yes.
Okay, so that's interesting. But like in my head, I was like, what if I want to say maybe? What if I want to say maybe? And I think it's all situational, which
Yep.
is kind of, what we're going to hash through today. And I think that that's always when you're a social media manager, when people are paying you to run their brands and they're saying, okay, well, are you giving us reporting? What metrics
Yep.
are we looking
Yep.
at? Of course, everybody's brains immediately go to, well, I'm going to get so many followers, right? Like how many followers am I going to need to get to be
Right.
successful? There's not really an answer for that.
No,
There's
and
not really an answer.
it's different for every page too.
Mhm.
Like success means different things. Everyone's dealing with different resources too, and different like engagements.
And different, like, what are you doing?
Right,
Are you
yes,
selling
exactly,
something? Are you
yeah.
service? Are you
Yeah.
product?
So if we break it down a little bit further, follower count, to you, it doesn't matter. What does matter?
What does matter? The quality of your content, the consistency of what you put out. I think that those are the top 2 things. Like, do you have a sound strategy? Is your content really good? Are you sticking to the plan and consistently putting out? I don't care if it's 1 time a week. I don't care if it's 2 times a week, 3 times a week, every day, every,
Yep.
30 minutes. But as long as you're sticking to that thing.
Yeah. So I answered yes.
Yes.
Because to me, so followers matter. It to me, it doesn't matter if you have 10 followers or 10,000,
Gotcha.
whatever is working for you, but you do need to have like that consistent following base, that group of people that have said, I want more of this.
Yeah.
So let's dive in more tactically.
Yeah. So why?
Why? Yeah. What are some reasons why you should have followers on your social media profile?
Yeah. I think that one is probably credibility. People like to go and see, hey, there's other people that know about this. There's other people that are aware of this. Or, hey, a large volume of people like this thing, so it must be good. Something here must be important, or I must be missing out on something.
Yeah. Yeah. I think follower count sometimes can kind of act as a quasi endorsement.
Yes. Yes.
This is real. Other people know about it. Like, it can also pull you into, if it's a large number and I'm looking at a page with a large following, it must be doing something right. Like, here, let's see what they're doing.
Right. Or maybe they've been around for a while. Maybe they're established. Maybe they've had plenty of
Yeah.
time for people to discover them.
Yep.
And so all of those things just kind of build up into that trust factor.
Yeah. So another reason why people should want to strive to have followers on their social channels, to me, is it's community. And it's not only interacting with the people who decided that they want to be on your page, they want to see more of what you're doing, but it's also kind of leveraging them for data points and analytics.
Yeah.
Here's a photo of, I don't know, me working at my desk today. Not a ton of engagement. Okay. They don't want to see that.
Yeah.
And then maybe we do maybe some final products, maybe some stills from some of our videos.
Yeah.
And then those do well. So people want to see
Right.
more of that kind of thing.
Right.
But it's the more you can get to know your followers and your audience through your social community, the more you can kind of take those insights and apply them offline too.
Yeah.
You could use them to drive like product innovations even.
Yeah. And the more opportunity then you have to ask for engagement and get it back.
Yes.
Engagement can work kind of like sales conversion rates.
Yeah.
How many followers you have, what's that percentage that are actually going to engage.
Yeah.
And so, scientifically, the more that you have, the more that
Opportunities.
percentage can go up to get that. But yeah, and I think that just having that community there to be able to actually ask those questions and get those really important answers for your brand that can direct your content, that can direct what you talk about, that can help you really pivot your strategy.
Yeah.
Because sometimes when you're first starting out, your strategy might be a best guess. Like you might, I think I know what my customers like, but when you finally get that feedback, it might tell you a little bit of something different.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that is one of the super intangible measurements of social that we talk about all the time.
Yeah.
You can't really put a number to
and
that.
I think it that speaks to the importance of agility in your strategy. Like you said, when you start out, you make an educated guess, but for the most part, you're kind of throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks.
Yeah.
The things that work, right? They tell you that more of this is needed, but you don't dismiss the things that don't work either because they're telling you what's not needed and what you can get away from.
Not everything's going to be a massive hit either. You always just take that as an opportunity to learn, you know, and it's fine if you kind of, don't get a lot of engagement or a lot of views, impressions, whatever. Yeah. It's fine. Learn something from it.
Especially starting out. I mean, every industry is different too. I mean, there's so many different, there's so many variables to keep in mind too when you're talking about like measuring engagement versus like your follower count.
Right.
Some industries just have low engagement rates. And that's obviously we want to beat like industry averages. That's what everyone strives to do. But you can use that information, learn from your competitors, like learn from their communities to kind of draw your own expectations about what your community should look and feel like, and then just try to top it.
Right.
So what's another reason people should look to have followers on their social channels?
Increasing their reach.
Yeah.
So this can also be, a little bit of a crapshoot anymore because like think about Instagram, for instance, just because you have all those followers doesn't mean that you're reaching them all the time. But you increase your chances of showing up in their feed, especially if you post strategically at what time of day, when are your followers going to be online? When are you more likely to get in front of them? It just really ups that chance of getting your content in front of more people.
Yep. Yeah. It's the snowball effect. The more followers you gain on your channel, the more more users you're likely to get in front of, which means you're likely to gain more followers and so on and so forth.
The more likely you are to show up in the explore feeds of their friends, their connections, because there's a good chance that if they like what you're doing, they know other people who do too. Yeah. It's funny. I had, there was somebody that goes to my gym and he posted something on his Instagram story about how like, oh, I looked up one thing about bowling and now all of a sudden Instagram's like, you must really like bowling.
Yeah. Like, you want to only see bowling now.
And it was so funny because I think the week before when we were doing a podcast, I was like, yeah, Instagram's starting to pick up on that TikTok thing. If you like Google one or search for one thing, it's going to start just really flooding your feed with it. Instagram's doing it, but more subtly. So apparently that has changed already.
Yeah,
it's not subtle anymore.
I think I noticed it. So we're second to last week of July right now. First or second week of July is when I noticed that it was the majority of things I was actually seeing on my personal feed were from pages I did not follow.
Yes.
And that happened for a few days, I think, until like the algorithm, the rocking ship kind of settled.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was fascinating. And there are other things that you can do to increase your reach too, even if you have a smaller follower count. We should do an episode on social SEO, by the way.
Yeah, we should.
But there are some SEO tactics that can be applied to social posts. That can help you increase that reach too.
One other personal anecdote. So a good friend of mine that I used to work with in Pittsburgh, she got into rock climbing recently. And so I've been liking a lot of her videos. It's just fun to watch people do it. And so now my feed, my Explore feed, Discover feed, whatever it is just full of people rock climbing.
Perfect.
It's awesome.
That's exactly what you wanted.
I know, right? So interesting.
I'll be interested to see how they, I'm sure they'll make like tweaks to that algorithm as like usage kind of probably drops. People are seeing things they don't want to see.
Right.
But yeah, that's kind of a fascinating change. Okay. So
another
reason that people, brands, companies should strive to have followers on social. We called this awareness, and we did go back and forth on this a little bit earlier to just name this one, but essentially it's getting in front of people and then also giving them a reason to follow you. Like you said, maybe it's a brand that's been around for a while. Maybe they were existent when the landscape of profiles, like brand profiles, was scarce. But regardless, if you have like an authentic follower base, maybe it's a combination of ads or organic follower growth. All of those people are on your page because they chose to be there. They want to see your content.
Yeah.
And that's if we're talking about our brand funnel, right, and how it applies to social, like the psychology of I want to see more of this is very low in the funnel. You're only a few steps away from conversion.
That's a very good point. Because think about it, especially when you have these explore and discover feeds now, you could see something several times and then eventually something in your brain clicks and you're like, oh, I've seen a lot of things from this person. I like them. I keep watching them. So maybe I want to follow them now.
Yeah.
That's a really good point, that there's almost like a different layer of the funnel that has added.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like a billboard.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's how many times you drive by before you're like, okay, I'll head to the REI website. I've seen 12 billboards.
I've literally never thought of it that way. That's so interesting.
And I think it's, if you're comparing like the organic growth versus like ad growth, it's essentially you're increasing those impressions before you convert to followers, right? But they essentially end up in the same bin anyways.
Yeah.
And
so that makes, like, for instance, Reels. I think that this is a conversation we've had with clients. Okay, so if you're getting all of these impressions from your Reels, do they matter if those people aren't converting into followers? And due to that, they probably do, because they could down the line be like, oh, I keep seeing stuff from this brand.
And I'll take it like one step further for a lot of our clients who are like thought leaders in their space too, and their face is very visible, and their brands have a connection with their face, and it's just so it's brand awareness, right? But we're also, again, we're converting. They're not buying the service when they convert, but they convert to the page. They visit the profile. Now they get a feel for the brand, and then they're in our social, like, you can call it a mailing list, right? That you've subscribed to. Now you're going to see those posts, and then we'll just push you further and further down the funnel with some more messages and reasons to buy.
The one thing that I really wish Reels did is that it has different post insights than any other sort of post on Instagram, especially right now. And I wish that it would give you that data of like who clicks to your profile or who clicks onto your website after they've interacted or seen that reel.
I wish I had a little bit more Reels data. It feels like it's coming.
It's got to be coming with what happened today, actually, with this Aries update today. So if you haven't heard, all videos on Instagram are now Reels. There's nothing. And we talked about how they are always working to simplify the interface and simplify the just what you have to click on and all the little spaces. That's another way that they have done that. They've converted everything into Reels. So I don't know where I was going with this. What was I saying? Data. There we go. Yeah. Found it. It's got to be coming.
Well, I mean, they have the insight. I know they have those insights. I'm not going to theorize why it's not publicly available, but it sounds like it's something that will be available soon, and that will be huge, I think, for especially like all brands, right? But for me, it's like small businesses that have like a large Reels strategy. Like that'll be really important for them to see those numbers. Like how many people liked this sort of thing and then came to my profile and then visited my website from it. So
it's just another attribution funnel that's really specific to social.
A little micro funnel. Okay, so another reason people should look to have followers on social, kind of centered around your strategy. What is that?
Yeah, so it means then that other pieces of your strategy are working for you, whether they're SEO, whether it's great captions, keyword-rich captions, hashtags, location tagging, the community management or the interactions that you've been doing. That's all signals then that those things are working, on top of having great content, on top of having that consistency. If you're showing up and you're there and you're doing all the little things to help people discover you, then it's working.
Yeah. And I think it's, we're dealing with this with a client right now, but it's, outside of the social sphere, what are you doing to drive your social and overall like marketing and digital efforts too? And I mean, even if you have a solid newsletter subscriber base, and you're linking to your page, that's one way to grow your followers as well. Same with the links on your website. If you have really strong like traffic, which stems from SEO, we could just keep diving down into this. But it's I think it's a really great point, and I think that that's something that kind of gets overlooked in favor of like the vanity of the follower stat. Especially for agencies, right? When we're tasked with growing profiles and driving consumers and customers to a site, that sometimes it's just like we can kind of lose track of why that follower count matters. And it means that we're getting in front of new people who want to see more.
But ultimately, and you make a huge point, social cannot stand on its own.
Yep.
What are the other channels that you have backing it up? What does your website look like? What do your conversion paths look like? What are the goals that you want these people to be following? That needs to be solid. It needs to be set up. You can have the best content on your Instagram, your Facebook, your TikTok. It could be amazing. But if once they finally are like, man, I really want to like get involved with this. I want this service. I want this product. They go to your website and that infrastructure isn't there. You've lost it.
Yeah.
You've lost it. And that's devastating. Honestly, that could be devastating to your brand, your process, your results. And ultimately, you said earlier, do you want 10 or 10,000 followers? If I have 10 people and 8 of them are engaging and they are buying from me and they are doing everything that I want them to do, that is so much more valuable than 10,000 followers who are just aimless and don't care.
Yeah. And a lot of that has to do with, again, going back to your strategy. Do you have a strategy that cultivates engagement, that really listens to what people are telling you through likes and shares and comments that they want to see more of? Or are you just doing what's going to get you in front of the most people and get you the most followers? You have to think about the type of follower that you want.
And on that note, too, a friend of mine who has an agency, a very small agency in Pittsburgh, they were like prolifically successful on TikTok. They were making tons of videos. They were showing up. I think they have something like 100,000 followers now. And then they kind of went dark for a little bit. And when they came back, they said, hey, you might have noticed we've taken a step away from this. And we realized it's because this wasn't really moving the bottom line for our business. We have really aggressive revenue goals. There's things that we want to do. In putting all of this time here, it wasn't paying off for us.
Yeah.
And so we're refocusing a little bit on the things that can matter and can grow our bottom line.
That's awesome.
And so good for them for being able to recognize that. On the flip side, we have a client who had under 300 followers on Instagram. Again, strategic hashtagging, strategic geotagging, and all of this. And he made a deal making, I think, $5,000 a month because one right person saw his post and saw his content and saw the value in it and hired him.
Yeah.
And so again, what would you really rather have? That 100,000 followers on TikTok that are just liking your post, or that one person who sees you and gets you a recurring revenue deal?
Yeah. And it's the strategy that drives both of those things.
Yeah.
Again, you could just it's not ever this simple, but like you could just create trending content.
Yeah.
Pick up on like trending audio, trending whatever, like video styles, or you could create content that's very specific to your clients or your own brand that's very niche. It's just so narrow. Like we had a very narrow lane.
Yes, super
we were
narrow.
delivering one piece of information essentially in several different ways.
Yeah.
And there was a ton of value. That was the big thing for the client that you're talking about, is we tried to pack as much value into every piece of content as possible.
Yeah.
And so the results there kind of led to like exactly what you just said. This wasn't strategic, 100,000 followers. It's not moving the bottom line. Feels great to have that number, right? But at the end of the day, we're trying to drive revenue through social. That's not getting it. 300 followers where the engagement rate was upwards of like 30 to 40% most of the time.
Yeah.
That means that almost half of the people who follow him gave him feedback on every single post.
Everything.
It was incredible.
Yeah.
And then it turned into dollars. And that's the higher
value.
I'm sure that the in terms of the value that like we delivered as an agency, it could probably match up. Like it's probably pretty comparable. We could create all that content for the 100,000 follower page for the same cost, air quote cost, that it cost us to run his profile. But one led to better results than the other. Not to brag, but like that, it just comes back to strategy, and that's like always the focal point of what we do. So.
Exactly. Okay, so then that also brings me to a question that I think we hear from people is, should you buy followers ever? Like all of these things that we've just said, if you're not thinking no in your head, then you should probably keep listening. But man, I don't know. What's your opinion?
For me, it's a firm no.
Yeah.
It would be hard to argue the opposite. Like it would be hard to sway me the opposite way. I mean, when you buy followers, so a lot of the value that we talked about earlier, a lot of the value in followers who choose to follow your page is that intention, so that you know every other action that they take on your page. Maybe they head to your website, whatever it is, it's all intentional. But when you're buying followers, right? None of them are choosing to be there.
No.
They're not choosing to engage with your content. So you can't really learn and adjust your strategy.
Right. They're not giving you valuable feedback. And I don't know, do people not realize either that if you buy followers, they're not real people?
Yeah, I mean, and platforms are punishing that too, like kind of retroactively as well. And it's, I mean, once somebody finds out that you do have fake followers too, the credibility that you thought you were building by having that high number is immediately out of the
just
window.
Goes down the toilet.
Like there's just no trust. Like how could they trust anything that you say when you're making up? It's like doing fake reviews. It's the exact same thing.
Agreed. It feels very black hat to me. It feels very, I don't know. It's just, to me, it's a bad business practice, and it's not saying anything about the value of your team.
Yes.
If your team can't tell you why, it's not that important to have that big of a number.
Or if you don't trust them when they tell you that it's
right. You're ultimately your content doesn't matter. You can be putting out the worst content.
Yep.
I don't know. That just
I don't know. Then you have to fight back. Like, why is my conversion rate so low?
Right.
And it's like, well, that's just to me. It all comes back to the stats and the numbers that you can draw from what your audience will give you.
Yeah.
If you follow your strategy.
There was I was watching an agencies. They were posting about some event that they were running. They were running social for, and they started posting just stats, and it was impressions, engagements, and all kinds of stuff. They never posted the engagement rate. They just posted all of the numbers.
Oh,
and so I started doing the math, and I'm like, okay, great. Like these are really big numbers. But then when you did the math, and I'm like, your engagement rate was 0.005. Great.
That's
good for
rough.
you.
Yeah.
Like, so what does that mean? To me, that says you paid somebody to engage with these posts and just to hit like, or you paid them to follow I don't know.
Yeah. Or I mean, it could have been that you did a reach or an awareness ad campaign too, but then you
cared
didn't
about the content.
Well, yes. And then you didn't have a follow-up, you know, you didn't like push them down into the funnel with some reason or way to engage.
Yeah. So do the math. If the math isn't there, do the math. And just, there's so many different ways to cut up metrics. There's so many different ways to look at them.
Yeah.
And so I guess that just also says, what's the value of your team? How are they presenting them to you?
Yeah.
Are they giving you a full picture? I don't know. So
and
do the math.
if somebody's considering buying followers, right? Maybe they're starting a profile. I can totally understand the desire, like how you could be tempted with like, oh, I'll just buy my first 1,000 followers. I know it's going to take longer, obviously, to get to that number if you do it organically.
Yeah.
Even with like a paid campaign, a little bit different. There's still intentionality in liking the page. But you're going to learn so much more about your audience.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, your strategy is driven by your audience.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
if you kind of ignore what they could potentially tell you, you're kind of setting yourself up for failure.
You are. One other thing too, that I wanted to mention is, I would so much rather see my clients grow little by little, month over month, than see a meteoric increase.
Yeah.
And if you're niched, especially if you're niched and you have a very narrow, very specific thing, that doesn't mean that you can't see large numbers. But one thing I encourage either their social media manager or the brand themselves to do is look at your competitors and what kind of follower counts do they have? What kind of engagement rates do they have? What kind of content are they posting? That can kind of benchmark you a little bit to figure out what is realistic for you and what you can expect or what you can achieve at some point.
Yep.
But also, if you see if you see for the most part people in your niche have smaller followings, and you find one that has a large following, dive into it a little bit and just see if there's anything shady. You can Google ways to determine if somebody has fake followers. It's generally pretty easy to see once you do look into it. But it's just that benchmark yourself.
And if you're looking to take inspiration from competitors too, to me, that's where the follower growth number is. So if you have a competitor who has, 15,000 followers, they gain 500 every month. Yeah. There's something that they're
either they're doing something really, really right.
Right. So dive into their content, really look into their engagements too. And if it looks real, if it looks authentic, there's a great place to source ideas from. Yeah. If it doesn't look real, if it looks really fishy, then you know that, okay, I can exclude them from my like inspiration table. Yeah.
So. I think the best thing I can say is if you see a profile that has, 5-figure followers, but then their posts have very low likes, very low comments. There's something weird going on there.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. Off our soapbox now. From
yes, right.
follower purchasing.
Ooh, do we get to do what you're digging?
Yes. Tell me what you're digging.
I am digging, speaking of social media and staying in that trend, I think everybody here who thinks about social media in any capacity, I've talked to them about this week. But there's a brand, it's called Vessi. They're a Canadian shoe company. They make waterproof shoes. Their handles, I think, are just at VESSI. I've been just really digging their content this week, specifically how they show their product on Instagram and the content that they make on TikTok. I think that it is just a brilliant example of why those two platforms need a different strategy, need different content to put out on there. I mean, for Instagram, for a product, I want something where I can really see the thing, where I can pinch and scroll and just like see a great still of it. And if bonus points, if it's a beautiful still and just kind of a nice aspirational thing.
Yeah.
And they strategically cross-post maybe more trendy things from TikTok onto that platform. But for the most part on Instagram, they let that product shine. And TikTok is just this really great, it's really beautiful product videos and just kind of like showing off these super cool shoes. But then it's, vignettes of just their culture in the office. It is just brilliant. And I just want everybody to go and look at it and follow them. And it looks, hey, Vessi, I hope you're listening.
You did. Jen did show me. Jen did tell me that she's buying your shoes. So now would be a great time to get her a coupon.
I know, right?
I loved what you were showing me then yesterday.
It's so good.
It's just a good example of like how you should approach platforms separately.
Yeah.
And you can do it simply too. Like you don't have to overthink each.
Ooh, their ads are really good too. I want to say I've been just getting slammed with their ads because I've just been like, I'm really looking at their content, looking at their website.
Shout out to whoever's running their social then.
And they have this kind of like influencer feel to them.
Yeah.
And the one ad that I keep getting hit with is a girl who she's like, oh, if you want to travel lighter, and she just kind of goes off and talks about all the benefits of having these shoes for traveling. And I'm going on a trip this weekend and I'm like, why don't I have these shoes? It might rain. Anyway, what are you digging?
I am digging some music again.
Nice.
I just listen to music when I work. It's a group called Jungle.
Okay.
Like, kind of like electro pop. It's nice. It's a little groovy. So
nice.
It's that's gotten me through the week this week.
Okay. That's why so we are in kind of like an office park of sorts, and the people next door to us, they call us like Club 202 and they hear, I feel like that's very Club 202 music.
It would be, yeah.
but like smooth Club 202.
Well, I think it's a little different from what DJ David plays in his office. But it's close. It's adjacent. It's Ravid adjacent.
That's amazing.
Okay, cool.
Anyway.
Well, thanks for tuning in and for listening to us mostly rant about social media followers. We do hope you learned something from this. And if you're just starting out a new profile, don't be scared and don't get discouraged by slow, immediate growth. This takes a long time to build.
Yep.
And as long as you are true to yourself, true to your brand, and true to your strategy, you'll get there. So don't worry about it.
Agreed.
Cool. If you would like to join our conversation, you can go ahead and tag us on any social platform, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. Check out some of our work on YouTube and on our website, 980c.org or 980c.tv.
Yep.
And we hope you have a great week.
See you next time. Ugh. We're great. For whatever reason, I thought that was supposed to be camera 2, and I was like, 1, 3, where's camera 2? Hello. Duh.